Welcome back to the channel, where we simplify cybersecurity. I'm Greg Flatt from Flat Earth Networking, and in each video, we break down complex cybersecurity topics into clear, actionable insights, helping you protect your organization effectively and affordably. If you find our content helpful, consider subscribing to stay up to date on future cybersecurity tips. Okay, today we're going to talk about a topic that sounds a bit like a spy novel, shadow IT, and how Zero Trust Architecture, ZTA, can help tame its risks. This might sound technical, but don't worry. We'll keep it relatable and maybe even throw in a little humor along the way. By the end of this video, you'll understand what shadow IT is, why it's a big deal, and how Zero Trust Architecture, a modern security approach, can help address the problem shadow IT causes. We'll also connect these ideas to real-world incidents like the Disney Slack data breach and the Okta incident. So grab a seat and let's dive in. So what is shadow IT and why should you care? Imagine you're working on a group project and the official campus collaboration tool is painfully slow or doesn't let you do what you need. You and your friends decide, hey, let's use this free app we found online. It'll be faster. That little workaround is a simple example of what companies call shadow IT. In a nutshell, shadow IT means using any hardware, software, or cloud service without the official approval or knowledge of the IT department. It's like sneaking a gadget into class that your teacher hasn't approved, not because you want to cause trouble, but because it makes your life easier. Why do people resort to shadow IT? Often it's for convenience or productivity. Company tools might be clunky or restrictive, so employees look for an easier alternative. A recent analysis noted that employees commonly turn to shadow IT tools, think of it as personal apps like ChatGPT or Dropbox, because the official tools are perceived as insufficient or too limiting. It's not usually done with bad intentions. In fact, about 80% of employees use shadow IT just to help get their work done. For example, using unauthorized file sharing to collaborate faster, rather than go rogue. However, just like using an unknown app to finish your homework might risk your data or privacy, using unapproved tools at an organization comes with serious risks. Shadow IT creates a kind of blind spot for the IT team. They can't protect what they don't know about. This means security policies can be bypassed without anyone even realizing it. One cybersecurity expert put it plainly: shadow IT, the use of unauthorized hardware, software, or cloud services outside of the IT department's control, is one of the most pressing cybersecurity risks today. When people use apps or devices under the radar, it can open the door for data leaks, malware infections, and other nasty surprises. All right, let's talk about why shadow IT is more than just a rule-breaking teenager phase of technology. We'll look at two real-world examples that show the very real consequences of shadow IT. First, the Disney Slack data breach of 2024. This is a story that sounds like it's straight out of a heist movie. In early 2024, Disney discovered that over 1 terabyte of internal data, including private messages and business information, had been stolen from their Slack channels. How did this happen? Not through some ultra-sophisticated nation-state cyber weapon, but through an employee's innocent mistake. The employee had downloaded a third-party AI art generation tool from GitHub for work, an app not sanctioned by the Disney IT team. Unfortunately, that tool was laced with malware. By installing it, the employee inadvertently gave attackers a foothold into their computer. From there, the attackers grabbed the employee's credentials and snuck into Disney's internal Slack workspace, eventually exfiltrating over 1 terabyte of data from around 10,000 Slack channels. This is massive. Imagine leaking essentially your company's entire group chat history and sensitive files. The breach was so severe that Disney decided to stop using Slack altogether, planning a costly switch to a different communication platform. All of this stemmed from one unsanctioned app, a textbook case of shadow IT causing a breach. Next, the Okta incident of 2023. Okta is a big name in identity and access management. Basically, they help companies with logins and security. Ironically, they had their own slip-up thanks to a form of shadow IT. In late 2023, an Okta employee did something many of us might do without thinking. They signed into their personal Google account on their company-issued laptop. Seems harmless. Who hasn't checked personal email on a work computer from time to time? But this simple action turned into a nightmare. That laptop had access to Okta's internal customer support system. The employee's personal Google account ended up inadvertently storing a password for a sensitive Okta service account, likely through browser password syncing. Attackers compromised the personal Google account, got a hold of these credentials, and used them to break into Okta's customer support system. The result? The attackers stole files called session tokens from support records, which allowed them to impersonate users in other companies' systems. 134 of Okta's customer organizations were impacted, and at least 5 of those, including companies like 1Password and Cloudflare, experienced attacks as a result. All because one well-meaning employee mixing personal and work tech, again, a form of shadow IT usage, using unmanaged personal cloud services on a work device. This incident shows how a tiny lapse can snowball. An employee's convenience led to a major breach that rippled out to many organizations. These examples underscore a few key risks of shadow IT. First, security breaches. Unapproved apps or devices might lack the security measures of official tools. Malware can slip in and sensitive information can slip out. Disney learned this the hard way when a rogue app led to a Slack breach. Next, compliance violations. Many industries have strict regulations about data. If employees use unauthorized tools, companies might unknowingly violate laws. For instance, in healthcare, if a doctor or nurse uses personal texting apps to discuss patient info, that's a big no-no. In fact, regulators warn that any organization with rampant shadow IT are not HIPAA compliant, because you can't protect patient data if it's flowing through unknown, unsecured channels. Shadow IT basically makes it impossible to prove you're following the rules since data could be anywhere. Next, data loss and no backups. IT can't back up or retain data it doesn't know about. If an employee stores critical work documents in a personal cloud drive that IT isn't aware of, those files might not be backed up properly. If that service goes down or the employee leaves, poof, the data could be gone. And then we have lack of support or updates. Official IT vetted software usually comes with support and regular security updates. Shadow IT tools might not, leaving them open to exploits. Plus, IT can't patch what it doesn't manage, so known vulnerabilities might linger in those unknown apps. Shadow IT might start from good intentions, like getting the job done efficiently, but it can introduce serious risks. A lesson from both Disney and Okta's stories is that innocent workarounds can turn into major incidents. Disney's breach was an invisible app that flew under the radar, and Okta's breach was an innocent personal login, yet both had huge consequences. So, what can we do about it? This is where zero trust architecture comes into play as a way to address these challenges. The name zero trust sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? It's like a paranoid slogan. In fact, it is a slogan, one you should always remember. Never trust, always verify. That is the core mantra of zero trust security. But let's demystify it in plain language and see how it works. Think of the traditional approach to security as a castle with a moat. The idea was keep the bad guys out at the perimeter, build big walls, and a drawbridge. If you get past the gate and you get inside the network, you're considered trusted. Many companies historically operated this way. Strong firewall on the outside, but once you're inside the network, things were much more open. The zero trust model throws that old idea out the window. Instead of a castle with one gate, zero trust treats every door, every user, and every device as a potential entry point that must be guarded. It's like having security guards at every single room in the castle, asking for ID each time, even if you were just in the previous room. In more technical terms, no user or device is trusted by default. Even if it's inside the internal network, you must prove who you are and that you're authorized every time you try to access a resource. Here are the key principles of zero trust in a nutshell. Assume breach mentality. Zero trust operates as if the system has already been breached or soon will be. It's a bit like a pessimistic coach who always plans for the worst case scenario. By assuming attackers might already be in your network, zero trust designs security to limit their movements. As one summary puts it, zero trust is centered around the notion that the breach has happened or will happen. This mindset changes how you design everything. You put in lots of internal checkpoints. Continuous verification. Always verify. Under zero trust, it's not enough to show your badge once. Every time you access a new resource, or even after a certain amount of time, the system should recheck that you are who you say you are, and that your device is still secure. In practice, this means requiring things like multi-factor authentication frequently, checking device health, and verifying you have permission for what you're doing. All users, devices, applications, and processes must prove their identity and security posture to gain or maintain access. For example, even if you're a known employee, if you suddenly try to download a whole database at 2 a.m. from a computer you've never used before, zero trust will throw up some red flags, likely challenge or block that action. It's the trust no one, double check everything principle. Next, we have least privilege access. This means everyone gets the bare minimum access they need to do their job, no more. It's like the need to know basis in spy movie. If you don't need the secret codes, you can't access the secret codes. So even if an account is compromised, the damage is limited because the account didn't have access to everything. For instance, if Alice in marketing doesn't need database admin rights, she won't have them. So if Alice's account is hijacked by malware, the attacker still can't get to the crown jewels easily. This containment strategy is crucial. Then we have micro-segmentation. This is a fancy term for breaking up the network into many smaller zones, each requiring separate authentication. Instead of one big open floor plan, think of it as an office building with many locked rooms. Entering one doesn't automatically let you into the next. In tech terms, even if an attacker gets into one part of the network, they shouldn't be able to roam freely. Each segment, maybe each application or service, is isolated. If the Disney breach had happened in a heavily segmented environment, the attackers who got into Slack wouldn't necessarily have been able to access other sensitive systems without separate approval. In zero trust, networks are often divided into micro-segments with strict controls on the traffic between them, which can limit lateral movement of attackers. Then we have security monitoring and analytics. Since zero trust assumes the bad guys might slip through, it keeps a close eye on behaviors. Systems will continuously monitor for unusual activity, like an account downloading far more data than usual, or a device trying to connect from an unusual location. If something looks off, the system can cut off access or require reauthentication. It's similar to a credit card company flagging a suspicious purchase. If you normally spend $10 on coffee and suddenly there's a $5,000 jewelry purchase in another country, they'll block it pending verification. Zero Trust does that for your network usage. Modern tools like SIMs, endpoint agents, and more help automate this watchfulness. In short, Zero Trust architecture is about eliminating the idea of a trusted internal network. Every access by every user or device is treated with skepticism until proven legitimate. It's a bit like having a security guard with a lie detector test at every doorway. Sounds strict, but it can dramatically shrink the chance of an intruder wandering around unnoticed. Now you might be thinking, this sounds effective, but how does it specifically help with shadow IT? Great question. Let's connect the dots. Zero Trust architecture and shadow IT are a lot like a detective and a thief in a constant chase. If shadow IT creates blind spots, Zero Trust is about shining a light on every access request, which can help expose or contain those blind spots. Here's how Zero Trust principles directly address the risks from shadow IT. In a Zero Trust model, one of the first steps is to identify all of your assets, users, and devices. You can't enforce verify everything if you don't know what everything is. Organizations adopting Zero Trust often invest in discovery tools to map out all of the applications in use, including unsanctioned ones. For example, after the Disney incident, companies realized that they need ways to catch these hidden apps. Some security platforms do shadow IT discovery, finding apps that employees have connected with corporate emails or devices. Zero Trust mindset compels an organization to inventory and monitor all network traffic by default. If an employee installs a random tool, Zero Trust network policies might flag it when that tool tries to connect to company data. In Disney's case, if a Zero Trust system had noticed an unknown AI tool attempting to access internal files, it could have raised an alert or blocked its access as an untrusted application. The goal is that no app or device sneaks around unchecked. Next, we have continuous authentication and access control. Remember how the Disney hacker got in? By using the employee's credentials to access Slack. Zero Trust could help here by not treating a login as a one-time pass. Even after logging in, if the account starts doing something unusual, like downloading 1 terabyte of data or accessing parts of Slack it never did before, Zero Trust systems could demand reauthentication or higher verification. Perhaps the hacker's device would fail compliance checks, like not being a recognized device or missing certain security patches, and then get blocked from sensitive actions. In an ideal Zero Trust setup, just stealing a password isn't enough. The system also verifies the device's identity and health. So the malware on the Disney's employee's PC, even if stolen credentials, might be stymied if the company had required that only trusted devices can access Slack or its internal systems. Zero Trust says this device is new and not verified. It gets limited or no access until it proves trustworthy. Then we have limiting damage via least privilege and segmentation. Let's say, despite precautions, an unsanctioned app or a malicious actor gets in. Zero Trust can still drastically limit the blast radius. In the Okta example, the attacker got into a customer support system and then could reach other customer data. With stricter least privilege policies, that support system might not have had permission to view as much sensitive info or download those session tokens so freely. Also, if Okta had segmented its internal services more, the compromised account might have been confined to a small portion of the network. In fact, as a result of the incident, Okta implemented changes like preventing personal Google logins on work laptops and forcing reauthentication if certain conditions change. These steps are very much in line with Zero Trust thinking. They realized they needed to verify identity and context continually, not just once. Next, we have enforcing compliance in real time. Under Zero Trust, you can bake compliance checks into access decisions. For example, if a healthcare worker tries to use an unauthorized app to view patient data, a Zero Trust system could block that because it violates policy. This active approach means even if employees attempt shadow IT, they're stopped or at least logged. It's like having a compliance officer AI looking over everyone's shoulder in a non-creepy way. This helps organizations avoid those accidental compliance violations. You can't accidentally use a forbidden app if the system won't let that app talk to your data. Then we have greater awareness and accountability. Interestingly, adopting Zero Trust often goes hand in hand with increasing employee awareness. When every login requires a bit more effort, like MFA prompt or an SMS to your phone, and certain apps are blocked, people start to understand, oh, the company is serious about security. It creates teachable moments. For instance, if I try to access a developer tool that's not approved and I get a friendly message saying, "This app is not allowed because we follow zero trust, please use an approved alternative," I now know that only vetted apps are acceptable. Over time, this builds a culture where employees are less likely to stray into shadow IT because the boundaries are clear and reinforced by technology. Zero trust doesn't magically eliminate the temptation or existence of shadow IT. People will always look for easier ways to do things, but it dramatically reduces the risk that shadow IT will lead to a breach. It does so by keeping everything and everyone on a short leash. No implicit trust for that random app that someone installed, and strict verification and limits on anything it tries to do. Think of shadow IT as a sneaky intruder and zero trust as a vigilant guard that says, "I don't care if you say you belong here, prove it, and I'll be watching you the whole time." Technology and policies alone aren't enough. You also need people to be on board. One of the biggest challenges in security is making sure everyone, from interns to top executives, understand and embrace the practices that keep the organization safe. This is especially true for zero trust, which might require changes on how people log in or access resources. It could initially feel like an inconvenience. How do we get everyone educated and even enthusiastic about these cybersecurity measures? Let's talk about some proven strategies to boost knowledge and awareness of zero trust principles and security in general. First, tell stories and use real examples. People love stories. The reason I told you about Disney and Okta breaches is the same reason companies share stories internally. It makes the risk real. One of the effective strategies is to discuss recent breaches caused by shadow IT or thwarted by zero trust in company newsletters or training sessions. When employees hear an employee's personal Google account led to a major breach at Okta, or one unsanctioned app caused a 1 terabyte data leak at Disney, it grabs attention. It's far more impactful than abstract warnings. Many organizations now incorporate case studies into training. Here's how a breach happened and how zero trust could have prevented it. In fact, security teams are advised to use real-world examples in training to illustrate how zero trust can prevent data breaches. It clicks for the people. They see it as cause and effect. Next, we need regular training sessions. Keep it engaging. We can't just do a one-time security lecture and call it a day. Regular periodic training is proven to work, and it doesn't have to be dry. Interactive workshops, short videos, or even security trivia quizzes can make the learning fun. The key is consistency. Perhaps a brief training every quarter to keep security top of mind. According to industry data, companies that consistently engage in security awareness training see up to a 70% reduction in security incidents. That's huge. It shows that an aware workforce really is the first line of defense. So an organization serious about zero trust will conduct ongoing training emphasizing things like don't use unapproved tools, and here's why, and always follow the new login procedures. These sessions can be spiced up with demos, for example, showing how an attacker might exploit a weak point, or walking everyone through a new VPN-less zero trust access portal so they're comfortable with it. The more hands-on and relevant, the better. Hands-on training sessions to practice using security tools, like a new authentication app, have been recommended as well, so that the employees aren't left confused by the zero trust changes. Then we have leadership and culture. One of the most overlooked but critical strategies is getting leadership, managers, directors, and the C-suite to champion zero trust culture. If employees hear top leaders saying, "We're adopting zero trust to protect our company and you, here's why it's important," and if leaders themselves follow the rules, it sets the tone. Build a culture where security is seen as everyone's responsibility, not just the IT department's job. For example, encourage a mindset where if someone sees something odd, like an unauthorized device plugged in or a colleague using a strange app, they feel empowered to report it or to question it, rather than thinking, "That's not my problem." Some companies even implement an internal slogan or campaign around zero trust to keep awareness high. Emphasizing collective responsibility and vigilance has been suggested as a way to nurture security-conscious mindsets. Essentially, make it cool to be secure. Celebrate teams that have zero security violations or reward employees who spot phishing emails or shadow IT usage. By removing any stigma, security isn't about scolding, it's about collaboration, people are more likely to buy in. Next, we have policy with a friendly touch. Organizations should have clear policies about what is allowed and what is not. But reading a policy memo is usually not exciting. Pair the policy with practical guidance. If you tell people what not to do, also give them an approved alternative. For example, don't use personal Dropbox for work. Instead, use our corporate OneDrive or Google Drive, which is monitored and protected. Often, shadow IT happens because people just want to get work done and don't know a secure alternative that exists. By providing convenient, secure tools and making sure they actually work, you reduce the temptation for employees to seek workarounds. And when you roll out these policies, do it with context. Explain why the restriction exists, perhaps referencing those real-world stories or compliance needs. When people understand the rationale, they're far more likely to comply. Then we have simulations and drills. Practice makes perfect. Some companies run simulated phishing attacks or shadow IT drills to keep employees on their toes. For example, the IT team might send a test email that mimics a phishing link and then later reveal to those who clicked it, hey, this was a test. Here's how you could avoid falling for the real thing. Similarly, an organization could simulate a scenario where an employee tries to use an unapproved app, and then that use is used as a training moment. While this is more about general security awareness, it reinforces zero trust principles too. Don't trust things at face value. Always be cautious with unknown software links. Over time, these exercises build reflexes in your workforce. They start to think in a zero trust way, like, this request for my password is odd. I shouldn't trust it. Or, I better check if this tool is approved before installing it. One important thing to remember, none of these strategies work if they're just generic check-the-box efforts. The key is to make them proven and concrete. That means measuring their impact. Like, are fewer people clicking bad links after the training? Or is there less shadow IT detected after we did an awareness campaign? And continuously improving. For instance, if a quarterly training isn't moving the needle, maybe you need to move it to monthly micro trainings or add incentives, like reward a department with 100% completion of the training and no incidents. Okay, a quick anecdote to wrap this up. A report by IBM found that companies with strong security awareness programs had significantly lower costs when breaches happen because employees often caught issues early or prevented them altogether. In other words, knowledge and awareness of zero trust principles can literally save a company money and pain by stopping incidents before they escalate. By investing time in understanding these concepts, you become an asset to any team by being that person who's security savvy, who will think twice before using a random app or will flag something suspicious. We've covered a lot, so let's briefly recap the journey. Shadow IT is the use of unapproved tech resources. It often starts innocently, people just trying to work efficiently, but it can lead to serious trouble. We saw that through the Disney Slack breach. Malware via an unsanctioned app led to a 1.1 terabyte data leak, and the Okta incident. A personal account on a work laptop led to a multi-company breach. Shadow IT expands an organization's attack surface in unpredictable ways. Zero Trust Architecture is a modern security approach that says no one or nothing gets a free pass. Never trust, always verifies means exactly that. Every access is challenged, verified, and minimal. We compared it to having guards at every door instead of just at the front gate. Zero Trust principles, continuous authentication, least privilege, segmentation, directly counter the chaos of shadow IT by limiting what an unknown or unauthorized tool can do by keeping visibility on everything happening in the network. Finally, we talked about building awareness and knowledge. Technology alone can't solve everything. People play a crucial role. Through real-world stories, regular training with a dash of fun, leadership support, and practice, an organization can cultivate a culture of security. When everyone from the CEO to the intern understands why shadow IT is dangerous and how zero trust helps, they become active participants in the company's defense. And, as proven, such awareness can dramatically cut down on security incidents. All of these concepts will almost certainly touch your work life. Your company might be rolling out zero trust and you wonder why you have to authenticate so often. Or you might be tempted to use a cool new app to simplify your tasks. Remember this video when that happens. You'll know the why behind the security measures. In a major way, we're all part of the cybersecurity team, no matter what our job title is. I hope this video has helped to demystify shadow IT and zero trust for you, and maybe even inspired you to be a security champion. The next time you're about to install a random app at work or share data through an unofficial channel, think twice. And if you're ever in a position to advocate for better security practices, you now have some solid stories and facts to back you up. Okay, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you found value in this content, please give it a thumbs up. It helps our channel grow and allows more businesses to benefit from these cybersecurity insights. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss out on our latest videos. And remember, if you're looking for personalized cybersecurity support or guidance on any of the topics that we covered, Flat Earth Networking is here to help. Visit us at flatearth.net or contact us directly. Links and details are in the description below. Stay safe out there in the digital world. Remember, never trust, always verify. It'll save you and your organization a lot of trouble.